Hi, this is Dean talking again, and welcome to our Brownbag session about ERP testing and the concept of ERP testing as a pipeline. Allow me to run through the context of this session with you. To start, we'll provide you with a short introduction to ERP testing, followed by why our strategy to this can be a good strategic fit for your next ERP project. We will go over the current challenges and what we do at Brightest to mitigate most of them. We'll also explain our best practices and we'll actively show you how we tackle these problems and how we do it. We'll also get more in depth about how we leverage not only emerging technologies, but also well-established ones within the context of ERP. So let's start with the why. ERP testing, the term itself, is self-explanatory, but where this session will be different is mainly in the how, as I personally think that Brightest has a pretty unique approach to this. ERP systems are pretty complex, and the failure of an ERP system can have a significant impact on a company's operations and bottom line. Given the importance of ERP systems, it is crucial to ensure that they are tested thoroughly before they are put into production. Remember, digital defects have real-life consequences, and most certainly within the context of ERP. Now, more than ever, the focus on ERP testing is increasing due to the shift to cloud-based ERP systems, which can introduce new challenges and risks. In addition, businesses are always under increasing pressure to deliver software quickly and at lower cost, which can lead to rush testing and poor quality software. And that's exactly what we see, as 60% of ERP projects are still failing terribly. Usually, in the top 3 reasons is the lack of proper testing. And we all know these scenarios. Business key users are being pressured into UAT, there are misunderstandings between the ERP vendor and the client, test environments don't have correct test data or at least not available on time, therefore additional manual or automated tests, if there were any anyway, are flaky and not reliable. This means that nearing a go-live, the project will either be insufficiently tested with the risk of real-life business outages, or the go-live will simply be delayed, both options of which will increase costs and ruin the return on investment of your shiny new ERP solution. Here at Brightest, we basically got the message. And despite the fact that software testing professionals have been around for quite a while, they still didn't seem to get that part entirely right. Well, we do. But the fact that ERP systems are now being run in the cloud on modern infrastructure has opened up a lot of doors for ERP quality excellence and ERP success. Let me take you on this journey. Okay, so now let's talk about what ERP testing as a pipeline actually is. ERP as a pipeline is an automation-driven quality framework developed and introduced by Brightest. This is specific to a number of top-tier ERP solutions like, for example, SAP or Dynamics 365. This way of working focuses on integrating and deploying any of those ERP systems for the first time right. We obtain that result by automating at least 50% of the testing efforts and introducing risk-based quality governance following your internal ERP lines of business, meaning that we'll actively work together with your business key users. By doing so, we are largely also relieving those business key users of extensive testing, configuration, or preparation tasks, for example, finding the right data to perform useful tests. Automation and our niche expertise results into faster testing cycles and less time to release your new ERP to production in case of migration, upgrade, or update. So adding this framework to your existing ERP implementation methodology will not only increase the return on investment of your new ERP solution, but it also has the potential to drastically reduce your hypercare cost. Yes, you've read that right. It reduces your hypercare costs to up to 90%. As we avoid production blowouts and other potential business blocking issues because we choose to aim for defect prevention rather than identification. I know that this sounds a little bit too good to be true, but just let me walk you through the how. So, how does it work? To explain you the how, we first need to focus on the three main challenges that there are there in ERP testing. So, any ERP project basically has three main challenges, right? First one being, how are we going to organize and synchronize testing efforts on such a large scale? Yeah. The second one being, ERP systems are complex, so if we are to test them, what type of tooling can facilitate both the process of testing and can also handle the kind of complexity that we encounter? Additionally, given the tools are available, who is going to handle the setup and the maintenance? This last question is often already a killer for test automation even before it is introduced. Therefore not recognizing the value of test automation in its entirety. The third one is data. Basically everything that has to do with data. The quality of your ERP is related to the quality of your data. So what is good test data and how do we obtain this very fast, very secure, and very reliable without losing data integrity? You probably all know that one scenario where you need specific materials, items, or purchase orders in your ERP system to be able to complete your tests end to end, but they are just not available on UAT, or you have to spend hours or even days writing queries and manipulating data to make it all work. Usually after that, you need to roll back the entire environment, which also takes days or even weeks in large multinational contexts. Pretty inefficient, so it is safe to say that proper test data is an issue in larger scale software endeavors like ERP integration or migration projects. That being said, at Brightest, we looked at those three challenges and set out to do it differently, and just better, if I'm frankly honest. For challenge 1, process and people, we looked at what was already there. Every ERP solution has its own prescribed implementation methodology. We simply connect our way of working to that and infuse those methodologies with an extra layer of quality mindset, ERP-ready testing blueprints, and additional quality gates to get it right the first time. All of this in close collaboration with your business key users. For challenge 2, tooling and configuration, in step 1, we've initiated the process and concrete test cases. Now it is time to unburden the business key users from most of the repetitive testing. For example, happy path core business processes can be automated with our own ERP Automation Studio. The pre-made tests are easily converted to stable and reusable automated tests, which can then be used as regression tests for every iteration, milestone, release, update, or upgrade. Which leaves us to challenge 3, the heaviest challenge basically of them all, data. Here is where it gets interesting really. Creating stable and reusable automated tests is actually not the hardest part of ERP testing. Provisioning the right data for those tests at exactly the right time, that is a complexity. To avoid hours or days writing queries, running lengthy cron jobs and still not manage to get reliable test data, we at Brightest choose the path of active data virtualization. It's a practice where we are able to get a copy of your production database in just an hour or two and then create target snapshots of that data for your new target ERP system that can be made consumable for testing purposes not within days, not within weeks or in hours, but in minutes. So it can be made consumable for testing purposes in minutes, which means that in essence, you always have proper test data available, drastically speeding up the development and testing cycles by 88% to be correct. Now in practice, this would result in the following approach. Brightest QA professionals join your team and will use interactive workshops with key business users in combination with pre-templated ERP test scenarios to create what we call the reference test cases. Again, we don't change your current ERP implementation methodology or roadmap, we follow your specific approach and blend in our mindset and artifacts. Those reference test cases can then be imported into our test management solutions, where they are organized in test suites aligned to the lines of business of your company so that we can start planning of test execution and have centralized reporting capabilities to follow up on those activities. Naturally, as mentioned before, we aim to automate at least 50% of the tests. In order to do that, we introduce what we call self-healing test automation connected to our test management platform. The term self-healing refers to the fact that we have engineered ERP-specific automation capabilities that drastically increase the stability of your automated tests, meaning that if there is a legitimate change to the system, the ERP connector will flag it as a change and prevent the automated test from flagging it as a false negative. That makes our automated tests very low in maintenance efforts and thus also drastically lowers the total cost of ownership of our solution, keeping in mind that the automated scenarios can be also reused for future ERP releases. Now the third block, data. To add to that stability, as we mentioned before, we introduced ERP-specific data connectors in our automation solution that will communicate with our data virtualization platform. In our data virtualization platform, we will take a copy of your production data. If there is sensitive data, it will be scrambled, but without losing its integrity. So then we can reformat the data and make it available as a virtual production database for your new ERP system. This lowers the data footprint, first off from terabytes to gigabytes, which make your cloud cost a little bit cheaper, and allows you to provision virtual copies on demand in minutes for testing purposes by what we call reusable snapshots. Data snapshots can be linked to specific tests as a precondition or to a team and even specific users so that every aspect of testing is always qualitative with testing data at the right time. They can even be integrated with modern-day CI/CD pipelines if you like. CI/CD automatically brings us to the next topic, meaning our emerging technologies. What do we use in order to make this work? Let's give you a practical example. Let's take a look at an example case for SAP S/4HANA implemented by using SAP Activate as the implementation methodology. So first off, as test management solution, we use Test Monitor as one of the most user-friendly solutions out there to enable a better collaboration between IT testing and business key users. Test Monitor is quite unique in the sense that it is one of the first test management platforms that has been built from the perspective of usability, making complex testing easy for basically everyone. It's also built API first, which means that we can connect it to Catalan desktops as a test orchestrator and Catalan Studio as test automation tool, which has machine learning powered self-healing capabilities to never break an automated test on SAP in case the context of that test changes. That is a nice use case of machine learning. Every time you run your test, the system learns about different types of context available in your system under test, which in this case is SAP S/4HANA, for which we at Brightest have created a smart connector ready to use within Catalan Studio. However, the true power of machine learning and AI comes with the data part, where we decouple old school data, virtualize it, and then use it to emulate real-world scenarios and then make them consumable again for testing purposes. For example, we can make virtual copies of an old Oracle database, scramble the data with integrity, and then use the capabilities of artificial intelligence with OpenAI to transform that data in the target format we need or ask the algorithm to recreate that 1 of a million edge case that could cost the company billions if this part of the ERP system would dare to fail again. So we use machine learning and AI as a tool to enrich what we do on a daily basis. We increase the value of the results, make our tests more anonymous, and keep it efficient by leveraging those technologies. Now, if we take a look at another use case, for example, Microsoft Dynamics, it's nearly the same setup. So we can make nearly the same setup to be available for Microsoft Dynamics, implemented by using the Dynamics search step as an implementation methodology. But instead of Test Monitor now, we have Azure DevOps as main central to manage and orchestrate the testing part. I can imagine now that you want to see this live, and as my grandmother always said, the proof is in the pudding. So I've shut down my camera so you guys can clearly see what is going on the screen. If my camera isn't running, my laptop isn't using this much of resources, so that's why. Either way, what you see in front of you is an automation project, an intelligent test automation project that works for both SAP and Dynamics 365. Please keep in mind that this is demo setup and that other ERP connectors are perfectly possible. So it is not limited to SAP and Dynamics 365, but for this example, this is the demo we are going to give. Now, what is actually in here is quite interesting. Here you have everything that's available in SAP S/4HANA Cloud, meaning that we have programmed automated actions, components, and flows. Components being reusable components like the authenticating of a user, the connection with a certain API, those small little things that you need to do or that you encounter a lot in every test. Then we have the actions, and those basically represent the actions that are available in SAP S/4HANA. For an example, if we go to production control, you have the action to check material coverage, you have the action to maintain product individual requirements, you can monitor material coverage, and so on. Yeah, these actions are pre-configured, pre-coded by our consultants, they are in our library, and they can be reused on every S/4HANA Cloud instance. Yeah. So how do we use them? Let me take this flow as an example. So a flow is a chain of actions and components that eventually create a test case, and that test case will be parameterized with data that we now generate in OpenAI from a virtual database to then be consumed in SAP so that we have the data available for testing purposes. So let's take a look to what this scenario does. As you can see, it's a drag and drop interface, because once the scenarios are scripted, once the components are scripted, once the actions are scripted, you can just call those and reuse them, because we made sure that they all can receive variables and parameters, meaning that mapping this to your environment is just a means of configuration and not recoding the entire automation scripts. Yeah. So in this drag and drop environment, you see that we are going to create a new material, or we're going to ask for a new material. That material will then be returned, and then eventually we need to foresee that we have the right account credentials to log into SAP. Yeah? These are all preconditions. The creation of the new material is optional. If you already have the correct test data in SAP and you don't want to do data virtualization, you can just point your test case in the right direction by yourself by entering a material ID. But in case you don't, you can use the optional generation, which we will do in the test that is about to run. Yeah. So here we see that we are calling a module to go to SAP, the component. Then we use the component to log in a user. We use the component to navigate. And eventually we call an action to maintain product individual requirements. Yeah. So as you can see, this is all quite readable. It has a clear description, and this description can be matched to everything that is there in your test management tool. Yeah. So let me work backwards into this together with you. What you see here is the production maintain pairs action, which we called, and this is that action. This action has been pre-scripted. Let me open the scripts view. Has been pre-scripted for us. Yeah, this means that once it is pre-scripted here, you can just reuse it anywhere. In this case, we will use it in this flow to supply manage material requirements. Yeah. Of course, this also has the drag and drop view in which you can make adaptations to this scenario. So you can either copy it and adapt it. You can introduce some other variables and parameters just to your liking, just to what you need. Maybe your core processes are a little bit different and you have chosen to customize SAP. This means that you can also easily customize these scenarios. Next to the moreover technical jargon, what is going to happen and what variables we expect and we get back, we have also here the description that is just in plain English and can be matched to the test steps in your test management tool. Okay, and so the list goes on. We call this action, we call the go to SAP model, go to app. We all have these scenarios are in here, they can be reused. Yeah, so that is the structure of the project here. Yeah, it's all in there, so it can be reusable for SAP and Dynamics 365. If we go and take a look at Dynamics 365, you basically end up for Business Central with the same thing. You have all actions in there, from the company hub to the warehouse. Everything is already pre-configured, so you can start parameterizing it, using it for test automation, either with virtualized generated data, either with the data snapshot of production, or either with data you just point your test cases to if they are already on the test environment and not really that much of a change. Yeah. So that's how this part of the tool works. Now let's get into the running demo and let's manage some material requirements. So let's go. Here you have a test that is going to run, and it will basically take a virtual copy, have OpenAI enrich that data with those 1 in a million scenarios. So it's enriching it now, and then it will be basically be pushing it back to SAP for Catalan Studio to use and start testing, as we see right here. So the test is going to run a scenario in which we are going to manage product individual requirements, basically increasing the quantities of products to be ordered based on the expected quantities that you will need them in your factory, which is a standard scenario in SAP for HANA. Yeah. So for the record, I am not touching my keyboard. This test is running completely automatically. So there we go, taking the product that we have generated with AI, taking in the properties, running the test, adapting the quotations also with AI, and then pushing back the result. Yeah. As we can see here, this test has succeeded. That's a little bit of proof is in the pudding. I know in future sessions we will be diving into the technicalities of how this works, both for SAP, Microsoft Dynamics, and the data visualization part. So if you're a technical person and you want to know more about this, stay tuned for future communications of Brightest. Now, it is also good to note that our solution is made in the most technology agnostic sense. Yeah, this means that you can implement it on SAP. We do have a connector for Dynamics 365 and Oracle NetSuite, but if you are a user of Salesforce, Acumatica, Financialforce, Odoo, or other variants, our solution will work as well. Just come to us and have a talk with us. Even if there is a logo not on this slide and it is an ERP, CRM, or other enterprise software system, please feel free to contact us so we can assess if this solution will also work for you. Yeah. So let's say if you're interested in doing ERP testing with Brightest, then we organize our project basically in 4 phases. The first one of which being the kickoff, which basically is a series of workshops where we work together with you and your business key users to determine our first testing setup. Once we have determined the strategy, the tooling, and what the setup will look like, we will then go into phase 2, which is the setup and preparation part, meaning that our consultants will set everything up as a service for you. This means setting up the test management platform, setting up the automated test to make sure that the bare minimum is covered, setting up the data virtualization part, making sure that the virtual copies of the data have been taken and that we can actually use them when testing is needed. Which takes us to the third part, is that we will actively roll out our testing methodology and the solutions based on your own project roadmap. It's a lead time of about 4 to 6 weeks, and then we will be ready for a rollout, meaning that our solutions are stable enough to be rolled out to help you in testing your ERP systems. And hopefully lead you to ERP success, meaning that you will have an ERP in production without business blocking issues, and that you will be left with reusable automated tests and flexible data provisioning for further releases. So in case you have any questions about the topic of ERP testing as a pipeline, in case you want more information, feel free to contact me directly or either ask questions now, as I'm still also here in the session. Thank you very much.